So what we have on the menu today is it's going to be a fufu dish. In Nigeria, the way I grew up in the Igbo land, in the Igbo culture, you get the cooked yam and you put it in a mortar and then you pound the hell out of it. That's why they call it pounded yam. Fufu was something that you get fed when you're basically like an infant. You know, you get fed little tiny bowls of fufu. So you grow up with that in your palate.
You get your exercise too, huh?
Oh dear. That's why my right arm is bigger than my left one. Fufu is enjoyed all across Africa. These are comfort food, comfort meals of the people. And we love that. We love it because regardless of what else we eat, you come back to that and you feel at home. Family meals are not this clean. Family meals, we get down and dirty. We probably eat it straight from the hard part. This is a whole different thing, you know? It's to share food and share culture. Thank you guys for coming. So what we are having today will be traditional Nigerian cuisine, fufu, and that will be accompanied with 3 different sauces. One is going to be okra and spinach, and the other dish is egusi, which is melon seed, and the third one is tomato stew and chicken. So we eat fufu with our fingers. Go to town, use your hands.
And also, I asked Uche about desserts, and he said we eat fruit.
So we don't have a dessert culture. So we don't have, because people just want to eat and go mind their business. So we don't have a. I learned to cook by observation, you know. Grandma is like, go grab me some this and help with the preparation, and that's what I did, you know.
One of the things that Uche was telling me about was like when he first came here as an immigrant. He was like kind of separated from his food for a little while, and so I was just wondering if you felt like sharing that a little bit, like what that experience was like for you, Uche.
I came to the United States as a young man with dreams, the American dream, and part of the American dream was consumption. McDonald's, KFC, fast food. If you're not from the United States, if you're in Nigeria. In that period of time that I came here, you long for those things, you lust for those things. And then after a while, it just starts to settle in, that this might not be the best food in the world.
It might not even be food.
I got to a point where I completely just hands off of fast food and just recognized that the food I was raised on, the food that's my cultural and ethnic food, was never bad. There was nothing ever wrong with it,
But you were like, what was the catalyst for like noticing that, and then what it felt like when you got back to your own food?
And a lot of that also stems from having our food vilified. African cuisine, Africanness in its entirety is vilified. African food, oh, that stinks. Oh, you African, oh, you must eat stinky food, I had to develop a thick skin to not let those things affect me and to realize that that's just another fallacy about Africa. That's my original source of life, and there was nothing ever wrong with that.
My food comes from the motherland. I was working as a summer school teacher, and it was hilarious because we were reading a book, and the character in the book was Puerto Rican. So I had brought tostones and brought a bunch of plantains and stuff. And at the time I had a bunch of African students. And I'm like, we know what that is. and it was great because it allowed me to have a conversation with a bunch of 4th graders about, well, y'all know what it is because y'all are the people who brought it to, y'all are the reason why my island has this.
I think what I've been trying to wrestle through is actually grief. Because there's this like immigrant sort of time capsule where the food that I grew up with, that my parents cooked, right, is from the 60s and 70s in Taiwan, right? The food there has changed a lot. Mm-hmm. The dishes where I'm like, oh, I want to find a restaurant that makes this the way that my mom and dad made it, they don't make it like that, is not popular, right? And because of US soft power and multinational corporations, like McDonald's is fancy there, KFC is fancy there, 7-Eleven is on every block. And as like folks, I'm a millennial, as folks, millennials and Gen Z become of age, and we become the culture bearers and the culture shapers, like how do we get to define what Taiwanese American food is like? You know, how do we get to define what Asian American food is like?
I remember, I'll never forget this story. So my grandmother, she's from Jamaica, so they immigrated from Jamaica. And I come, we're visiting, and I go up to my grandma and I'm like, Grandma, everybody makes fun of me because my mom doesn't make hot dish, right? She doesn't make hot dish. My grandmother, she gets so, her face, she looks so confused. She goes to her mom like, why you not making no hot food? Because in her head, she said, she heard hot dish, and she said warm food. And I go and I bring it to my grandmother, and she reminds me that the food that I eat is not weird, it's royal. If that makes any sense.
Your mom or your dad or your grandmother made you something that you remember them by, and it made you feel safe. I think it's super special when you can come sit around a table like this and hear the stories of people of color, but probably more important, the stories of allies of people of color and what brought them here. That's something worth fighting for. So.
This is what we're talking about, and we want to share it, and we want to share in it together. So, I mean, I just want to thank everybody here and Uche especially. Uche brought so much heart and soul into this.
There was a whole bunch of empty dishes tonight, which let me know that people did actually enjoy the cooking, and I'm proud of that. I feel like I'm, representing Nigeria in a good way. I'm happy for the company that we had tonight. Getting back to embracing our cultures is a sure way of fighting back against colonialism in all its ways. Through food, we're able to actually reclaim that power, reclaim ourselves, because we are what we eat. Food cannot be colonized.